Who is Jesus? To say that he's the most famous person in the world is an understatement. He lived almost 2,000 years ago, and yet his name is still one of the most often searched for words on the internet. In fact, his birth was so important that it marked the end of one historical period and the start of our present calendar. So why do so many people want to know about this man? Well, millions of people believe that Jesus is more than a man. You see, they believe that he is and was God in the flesh. Still, other people believe that he was just a good person, but they don't really believe he was God. And some skeptics question his existence entirely, and atheists don't believe in him at all. What's the truth about Jesus? Any person who sincerely searches for the truth about Jesus is quickly going to learn that Jesus lived. A number of historians wrote about the events that happened in his life. The Jewish writer Josephus talks about him. Several Roman historians, such as Tacitus and Pliny the Younger, they refer to him. The evidence shows beyond any reasonable doubt that he lived in Palestine from about 4 BC to about 30 AD. But of the billions of people who have lived in history, why is Jesus so special? Well, for one thing, his life fulfilled hundreds of ancient prophecies that were recorded hundreds or thousands of years before he lived. You see, those prophecies foretold what family he would come from, where he'd be born, how he would die, how he'd be buried, scores of other things that Jesus couldn't have manipulated during his life. Also, Jesus' life and teaching, well, they're unlike any other persons that ever lived. He preached that we should love our enemies, and he showed us how by asking God to forgive even the people who murdered him. He preached that we should care for the needs of others. He showed us how to do that as he went about doing good to all with whom he came in contact. The accounts of the life of Jesus found in God's Word couldn't have been copied from other books because there's not another book in the world that documents a life like the life of Jesus. In addition to that, Jesus said he was God in the flesh. He said, I am God. He performed miracles. Even his enemies had to acknowledge that they were true miracles. He had the authority to forgive people's sins. He accepted worship, which even angels in heaven wouldn't do. And he taught that he's the only way to God. And finally, Jesus predicted his own death and his own resurrection. Some scholars and historians have tried to show that Jesus didn't really rise from the dead, but their efforts have all been in vain. Not only did numerous people see Jesus die and then see his resurrected body, they even touched him and ate with him after he came back to life. Many of those people who saw him alive again were persecuted and killed for teaching about his resurrection. The resurrection of Jesus is one of the most validated events in all of human history. And there's no doubt Jesus was no ordinary man. He lived, he taught, he performed miracles, he died, and he came back to life in a way that only God in the flesh could have done. When we think about the life of Jesus, we're thinking about the true God from heaven in the flesh.